I mean, there's so much. Like one thing I dislike the idea of like a bucket list that you could like tick these things off. I think it's so unhelpful way of looking at travel because you don't know what you don't know, right? And you don't know what life's going to give you, and you got to be open to take an experience.
You almost limit yourself with the bucket
You
list.
limit yourself and just and focus on it's just focusing on the wrong thing, and I don't think it helps in terms of over tourism and people ending up doing the same old thing. So it annoys me as a concept, but that's not a particularly original thought. I think for myself, though, the more I'm probably going into a slightly another stage of my life. My youngest son George is now 18, doing his A levels next door, revising as we speak. So suddenly, you're thinking, wow, God, there's a bit of space, can do some travel. And I love the travel I do for work. I'm so lucky with the travel I do for work because I get to work with our partners and teams on the ground, and actually working with someone is just an amazing way to discover something about a place and do that and have these adventures that you wouldn't do. And that's something that is a real privilege. And I just love that. And I want to do, I'd like to do more of it. And some of the trips that I do are on the edges of what ETG does. So, like Maluku Islands in Indonesia, or Sulawesi, or, into Orissa in Uttarakhand in India, and at the exploring at the edges of that, kind of setting up, pioneering it for our program coming in for our customers behind it. That's what I love, and I'll definitely keep doing it.
You know what, Sam, as I hear you speak, it's really interesting because we've known each other a long time as well. And the way you talk about travel and going to the edges and growing and exploring is the same journey that you go on personally in your own personal growth. I've seen you grow in terms of the work we've done together, in terms of stretching and going to the edges and growing in that. And there's a real kind of interesting metaphor in the way that you describe travel and moving to the edges, and also your own personal kind of philosophies, beliefs, whatever you want to call it, spiritual growth, whatever you want to call it. There's such a, there's just a strong metaphor in the way that you were saying that. And I was going, oh, well, yeah, kind of getting to the edges and then taking that a little bit further, because when that edge becomes normal, you kind of go out to the next edge. So, yeah.
And is that a prerequisite of, we've been talking earlier about the growth of a company can really only go as far as the growth of the leader or leaders. Is that the same sort of correlation here? That would you, do you think, Sam, that your inner work and your, let's say, spiritual journey, like, is that a prerequisite for your company's growth and purpose?
I mean, purpose, yes. I think growth. I mean, the company grows in a way that the founder is part of that DNA, right? So the growth, it's going to grow out of that DNA in a direction. I think at some point, and I've seen this with other companies more than my own, but at some point, the founder maybe needs to step away and let that growth go where it will. And I think it maybe becomes bigger than the founder in there, or the founder can still be set in the purpose and sort of, but it needs to kind of go from that, and potentially that's something that's a sort of the next stage for ETG, Experience Travel Group, going from there.
So what's the thing that you find hardest about leading people?
I find the most frustrating thing that I find is people wanting to slow down and, process things and think about things sensibly because I'm primed to action. But at the same time, I understand I need that, and it's really important. But yeah, that's what I find difficult, is if people want to, just to slow down and stop. Like I want to keep going, and people would say, "Oh no, if we're doing well," people said, "Well, why in a team? You don't celebrate success." And that's a criticism I've had as a leader. You don't celebrate success, and it's a fair criticism, because I'm actually talking about, I'm thinking immediately, great, that means that we can do this. That means we can go there. So fantastic. There's no room to stop, and there's no point in stopping in my head. But it's a fair criticism, because actually people have worked really, really hard for that success and really hard to get there. And so, you have to learn, or I have to learn, to stop and appreciate that and acknowledge the work that's gone into it, and acknowledge the place it's got to. But I have to work at that.
And that's for them. You're doing that for them. When will you stop and celebrate success?
I think I need to do it for myself as well sometimes. So I think that is something that you need to do for yourself too.